Good day. Dwayne Groom here, your guide. Wow, over halfway through the challenge. And if you look back, you're definitely stronger today than you were coming into lesson 1, right? This week, we're going to talk about price. And here's what my objective is for today's lesson. I want to make you stronger at pricing and stronger at the method of presenting price. Now, last week was one of the best weeks ever. You know why? Because we showed you how to go on a listing appointment and walk out with the listing if you choose. So don't ever underestimate the sales process. It's very important. Puts you in positive control. And remember to master the qualifying questions. You need to find a problem, otherwise they do not need you. Also master the use of your pre-planned marketing plan. And from today, master the ability to present price. So let's amuse the trainer just for a moment. I just want to go over the introduction together with you. Again, you pull up in front of someone's house. Make sure you're focused on the moment. Get out of your car. You're dressed like $1 million. Strut to the door with an air of confidence like you do it 10 times a day. Once you're there, ring the bell. They answer, smile. Pay them a sincere compliment. Take them to the kitchen table. Sit down and small talk. Talk about anything but real estate. And once real estate is brought up, we'll move to the sales process, the qualifying questions, previewing the property, marketing plan, then presenting, or the method of presenting price. Which leads us to today, as I said, the 5th key to success, price and net. Taking a saleable listing, I want to give you some truths here. There's 6 of them. The first one is this: saleable listings are the way to the top. They always have been and they always will be. Number 2, expired listings ruin your reputation. What do most people complain about when their home doesn't sell? Number 3, advertising does not sell an overpriced listing. You could put this property on TV, you could have it on the internet, you could have it on the radio, you could have shows like The Tonight Show with Jay Leno, you could have it everywhere, and if it's overpriced, it just won't sell. Number 4, have a basic marketing strategy. Remember this: price it right. Invest a nickel to make a dime. Number 5, there's nothing wrong with any listing that the right price and terms won't fix. And 6, we cannot do magic. And as a side note, make sure you understand that you do not take a listing just for the sake of taking a listing. You could be setting yourself up for failure. Now, how many of you have a listing that is probably overpriced? You know, how do we gauge that? I guess one of the best ways is to say to yourself, you know, how long would it take in our market for a home to sell if it's priced right? Depending on the market, depending on the location, depending on the state or province, it could take anywhere from a couple weeks to a couple months. I understand that. So ask yourself this: do you have a listing that's been on the market longer than what it would normally take to sell if it was priced right? And of course, if you say yes, then you have an overpriced listing. So here's a couple of things you can do. I call it a 7-step price reduction technique, and there's 2 forms for that. And the first thing you need to understand is the first step is to put together a focus group meeting. In other words, once a week, maybe starting at 5 in the afternoon, meeting with a couple of other people from your office or from the class. You would meet to not only sharpen your skills, but to go over some of the listings and talk price. And then maybe once you're done that, you could do some proactive prospecting as a group. The second thing you would do is you would fill out 2 forms. Now, you need some broker approval on this. One form is called a termination, and the other one is an amendment. The next thing you do, the third thing, is you would actually call the owner, and you would set it up just like a listing appointment. Now, once you get over there, everything's still the same. Like I said, you pull up in front of the house, strut to the door with confidence, ring the bell, smile, pay them a sincere compliment, take them to the kitchen table, small talk. Once real estate is brought up, which will come up pretty quick in this case, you move to the comfort zone, kind of tell them what you're going to do before you do it. For example, you'll say, well, we have a couple of forms here, and one of them is, and because you care enough, you're going to say, I care enough that, you know, if we don't do something, we're going to be unable to proceed with your plans. And I am actually willing to back off. And my broker and I have talked about it. And you will also let them know that you've met with some other agents. And in a moment, you'll explain price. And you'll say, I'm willing to back off and let you go work with somebody that maybe doesn't care as much as I do. And that's called the termination. You'll present it first, and then the next one you do is you'll present the amendment to the listing contract, and you'll say, I also met with a group of agents, other professionals in the industry, and we exchanged information on where it should be priced at. And on the amendment, you're actually going to have three things, because I believe that if you ask for more, at least you'll get something to work with. So the first thing on there would be the new price. It might even be the price that the sellers thought it might be in the first place. So you have the new price on there and tell them that you came up with this price based on the meeting you had with the other professionals. The second thing is you're increasing the commissions. You're going to put a bonus on the buyer's end of it there to attract more attention. And the third thing is you're going to add more time because you've lost a little bit of time already. So out of those three things, you might get one if they decide to stay with you. So you slide both those forms over and you make it their decision. That's the sixth part to this. And 7, be quiet. You're almost looking at them with your best puppy dog look ever, and you just sit there and let them look at it. Now, what's the difference between a buyer's agent and a seller's agent? Go ahead and ask yourself that. The answer is this: a buyer's agent sells on emotion, where a seller's agent lists with logic. And remember again, do not terminate anything without broker approval. So when do you have the perfect listing? I have 3 components that you need to be aware of. The first one is the right price. This will help make it a saleable listing. The second thing is right terms. What's included, what are the commissions, etc., etc. And the third thing is the right length of time. The question is, when do you turn down a listing? Now, if you have all 3 components in place, you have the perfect listing. But when do you turn it down? A good rule of thumb is this: when you cannot get even one. I'm thinking if you have at least one, you have something to work with. Then you could consider taking the listing. So how do we determine price? Let's think about this for a second. Determining price, you have to understand that every neighborhood has a range. There's a high range and a low range. See, houses are like people. It's what's inside that counts. So you haven't seen the inside of the house yet. So obviously you need to have a little bit of a range. And once you're there, for example, if the home is in great condition, once you're there, you'll see that. You'll know that maybe you can go on the high end of the range. Whereas if you go there and it needs repair, it might be on the low end of the range. By the way, remember this: everybody pays to maintain their home. They either pay for it when they're living in it or they pay for it when they're going to sell it, right? What if the seller has time to sell? Maybe that's on the high end of the range. What if they need their cash now? Could be on the low end of the range. Again, if they have the right terms, maybe there's a bonus for the buyer agents. It could be on the high end of the range. And you know what? If they need a fast sale, if it's maybe I hate to say it, but a divorce, or maybe it's just a relocate, fast sale might be on the low side. So now that we understand that we have to have a range because we haven't seen the condition of the house yet, let me just go over the process once you show up there. Again, you've heard it 3 or 4 times, but I want to get this to sink in so much that when you're walking downtown and you see somebody across the street point a finger, you're thinking, ring the bell. You know what I mean? So here we are. You pull up in front of the house and make sure you're focused on the appointment. Get out of the car, dressed like $1 million, strut to the door with an air of confidence. Get to the door, ring the bell, smile, pay them a sincere compliment, go to the kitchen table, small talk about anything but real estate. Once real estate is brought up, move to the sales process. After you've asked the 15 questions, preview the property, come back to the kitchen table, go over the marketing plan, show them how you get the job done. And once they are sold, remember this: once they are sold on you and your company, then move to price. Never talk price until they are actually sold on you and your company. So let me give you a few methods here. First of all, the first method is good price, I call it. When they give you a good price over the phone, remember when we go back into our track on the phone and we say, what price range home do you live in? If they give you a price and it's a good one, when you're on the presentation and you've sold you and your company and you've asked them the question, what would it take to put your home on the market today? And they say, well, you know what, if we can get the right price, and you say, okay, great, here, let me show you the pricing part of the presentation here. You need to confirm that they're sold on you and your company. And then you tell them, you know what, I did some research and that price you gave me over the phone was good. So what I'll do is I'll put it on the net sheet here. So you take out the net sheet, you put the price on there, you work out the net sheet. When you're finished, you ask them any questions. If they say no, get the listing signed and get out quickly. Now don't run because they'll think they made a mistake. What I mean by that is don't socialize. Now, if they don't ask for the CMA, don't take it out on your own because, again, if you've said, I've done my research, your price is good, you go over the net sheet, you go, any questions, they say no, then everything's fine. Just move forward. The second method is what I call a CMA adjuster. See, most of us go in assuming that we have to start showing the CMA to justify the price. But again, if it's a good price and they're okay with it on the net sheet, just move forward from there. But most of the time, you're right, you will need the CMA adjuster. And this should be used only when the price is just a little bit higher than the sales in the area. So when you confirm that they are sold on you and your company from your marketing plan, right, you will take out the CMA and you will mention to them that this is for minor adjustments. You'll say the price you gave me over the phone was pretty close, but here, let me show you what other places have sold for in your area. You take the net sheet out and you'll say to them, let's do this, and slide over the highlight sheets from the other sales in the area, get them to pick a price, put that on the net sheet, and work it out. When you're finished, ask them, do you have any questions? If they say no, then you get the listing signed, and again, get out quickly. And here's a tip I'd like to give you is that always try to put in a price in the net sheet that's on the low end, what's the least that they would accept. Because if you work it out and you say any questions and they say, well, you know, it's not quite as much as we'd like, but we know that we could at least work with that, then you're working up from there. In other words, you won't be disappointing them if you go at such a high price and you're coming in low later. So the question is, what do you do when it's way overpriced? You know what I'm talking about. You're on the phone and you hear a huge number. I don't know, it could be $700,000 and the home's probably only worth $500,000. I have a third method for you, and I call it the dilemma technique. And again, it's used if it's way overpriced. So back up a bit for a second and remember, after you've sold you and your company from the marketing plan, and they've confirmed that, you know what, once you agree on price, once both of you agree on price, they'd consider moving forward, take a moment to say, I just want to explain to you why we do a market evaluation. And one of the main reasons is so that we don't have to guess at your price tonight, but there's a few other reasons. One is buyers look at the sales in the area to see if they're paying too much or even where to write their offer at, and banks kind of look at that as well. But you know what? In step 3 here is I want to explain a little dilemma I have here. And here's how it goes. I actually tried to come up with the price that you gave me over the phone, and I went back like 6 months, and I couldn't even come close. And the dilemma that I'm faced with tonight is this. Should I just tell you what you want to hear just to get the listing? Because that's what you said, isn't it? Or should I just level with you and tell you what you need to know? And step 6 is you would just leave the decision up to them. Again, you would just have that puppy dog look. So you just say, so I'll leave the decision up to you. 9 times out of 10, they're going to say, you know what, we need to know the facts. Just level with us and tell us what we need to hear. So if they want the facts, you will pull out the CMA and you will ask them what they think the price should be based on the sales in the area. Now, if none of that works, use this. I call it the wholesale retail technique. And this is dynamite because you could still have some people that are still saying, well, we would like to still go high, thinking that a buyer might just trip in and give us what we wanted. So take a moment to use a talking notepad and explain to them how retail price is, and that's market value, and wholesale price is, and that's what an investor would pay so that they could make a profit off the sale, clean it up or renovate it, turn around and flip it, and that's how they make a living. But the bottom line is that we have to figure out your list price. So whatever the prices are at retail and whatever the prices are at wholesale, it really comes down to their list price being based on time. Now, when I talk about time, I'm not talking about time, how long it would take for them to get an offer. I'm talking about how long it would take them to get their cash in their pocket so they can move forward with their plans. So that brings us into the price and time technique, and they go together. In the class, I showed you how you can use a talking notepad, and you would start at retail, wholesale, your list price, go back up to retail, put in a price, which is the market value from the CMA, put in the wholesale price, which is based on that profit for the investor, and their list price based on time, bringing down that price and time technique pyramid. And on there, we showed that, you know, if you needed your money today, or within a week, let's say, you could probably get 75% of market value cash today. If you needed to get your cash within a few weeks to a month, it might be 85% of market value. If you needed your cash within a few months, it might be 95% of market value. And for 100% of your cash, it might take up to 6 months. This all depends on what the market is really like, if it's hot, if it's average, or it's bad. So the time to get the cash could vary. But I would prefer for you to always stick with a 6-month listing. Now, what if they want more money than what it's worth? I've seen some markets where they've come down and people are rushing to put their home on the market with last year's prices. It might be 10% higher. Well, all you can do, again, we don't do magic. All you can do is take that pyramid and add another bar to the bottom of it where it says 110% and just say, you know what? I guess if we had a little more time, the market might be able to pick up and you can get that 10% back. The only problem is you risk the property going stale. What you have to do is ask the seller a question. When would you like your home to be sold? And put the monkey on their back. In other words, educate them and put the monkey on their back where it belongs. See, doing something will always get you further than doing nothing at all. The next part is closing for the signature, the 6-step closing process. So after you showed them the net sheet, I showed you 3 specific techniques you can use. Then I showed you another one that if none of that worked, you could use that. When you ask them any questions, if they say no, let's say you've confirmed the price and their net is, I don't know, $200,000. You say, any questions? You've established the net. And remember this, never, ever ask them if that's enough. You have to use the best closing question ever. They say, no, I don't have any. Explain the form. That's the listing agreement. Ask them again if they have any question. Hand them the pen. You know, this is advanced sales. I'm not kidding. You guys, first of all, should have a great pen and recognize when there's an opportunity to close. If you say any questions, they say no, hand the pen and direct the signature. You might even say to them, press hard, it's cheap carbon. Once you've got the signature, again, pack up and get out how? Quickly, exactly. Don't socialize. Now, this technique has to be completely natural because closing is the natural conclusion to a fine presentation. Now, earlier I mentioned to you that I want you to get a 6-month listing. Now, let me show you how you do that. First thing you could do is you could put it on the agreement in advance. Sometimes when people see it, they don't even ask any questions. And if they point it out and say, oh, it's on the market until whatever the date is, move to the step 2, which is this. Don't look nervous. Don't look nervous at all. And 3, give them some various reasons on why you have enough time in there. For example, what's the average selling time in your marketplace? How long does it take for possession on average? And just add them up. And you know what? You won't come up with the 180 days, but you might come up with anywhere from 80 to 100 to maybe even 110, depending on the marketplace. And you need to explain to them how you need to have enough time, because you should be focusing on selling the property, not running out of time, right? So that brings us to the travel technique. I call this the travel technique because you could say to them this. All right, so we need 100 days according to the market. This is just an example. And you say, let me explain something to you here. Let's pretend that I needed 150 gallons of gas to drive from here to Disneyland. Now, if there was no gas stations on the way, and I know there is, but if there wasn't and you had a big enough tank, how much gas would you put in? Would you just put in 150? Of course not. You'd probably put in a little more. You definitely wouldn't put in less. So how much would you put in? Maybe 180 gallons of gas. The next part you have to remember as an agent is this going to be a good business decision to list this property if it's not listed for the right length of time? Invest a nickel to make a dime. And finally, let me give you something I call your ace in the hole. It would be your service cancellation guarantee. I do not want you to advertise this. This would be your last resort so that you can make them feel comfortable enough with the 180 days. All I ask is that if there's anything that I said I was going to do that I'm not doing, give me 24 hours to fix it. The reason I want you to do this is because if you tell somebody that they can cancel whenever they want, people will just take advantage of you. They don't even mean to. And the next thing you know, it's not selling as quick as they expected. People always think their home's going to sell in 4 days or a week or two. And people will call and say, I just want to cancel. There should be a reason. There should be a little bit of time for you to maybe fix what they're expecting and a chance for you to continue. Okay, so that brings us to showing you how to make a home more saleable. We have something called the property checklist, and if you use this, 95% of the listings will sell in record time. So what the checklist does is this. Number one, it makes the house more saleable. Number two, it sets personal listing standards. Number three, it creates awareness for the seller. And four, it could be used as a prospecting tool. So when do we use the checklist? Well, one, we can use it after we get a signature. Two, we can use it for price reductions. Three, relisting your own properties. Number four, expired listings. This is a great prospecting tool for expired listings. Now, I'm aware of the fact that in some areas there's a Privacy Act and you're unable to phone expireds direct. But you know what? They might call you. And later on in today's lesson, we're going to go into expireds and exactly how you can talk to them if they call you. And in some areas, you can call them. But first, let's take a few minutes and go over the property checklist and show you how it works. This will give you confidence for when you're talking to somebody about it. Correct? Across the top in today's lesson, we explained to you that you want to show that there could be three different types of markets. And you have to determine which one it is for the client you're working with right now. So you have the good market, you have the average market, you have the bad market. And we gave you 20 parts to the checklist. So in a good market, you might say, you know what, in a good market, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, we just need about 15 or 16 checked off. In an average market, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, we might need 17 or 18. And in a bad market, you might need 19 or 20. So you would actually put that in there so that they see it. Something to be said about it when they just see it. They almost always believe it's true. And by the way, it is. Okay, so number one that I have on the checklist, listed at or below retail price. When you're going to explain it to them, what's the importance of having a property listed just at below retail price? Come on, you guys know this. If it's just below, you might create a lot more interest in the property and could create a multiple offer situation. Number two, owner financing. Now, what's two reasons why people would not want to do owner financing? Well, one is they need all their money to move forward, or two, they don't understand it. At this point, I don't want you to explain it to them, and I'll explain it more in the class to you guys or in a later taping. But let's move on for now. Number three, seller to pay closing costs. I don't know what it is, but when you put it in an advertisement that the seller is going to pay closing costs up to, and you put it in an amount even, it's amazing how much more the phone can ring. Now think about this. What's advertising meant for? It's meant to get the phone to ring. Number four, an odd sale price. Now this isn't a real big thing, but let's pretend that you use their birthday for the last three numbers on the price, or you use Valentine's Day, 214. Funny thing is that it gets people's attention, even enough that they'll phone you. And again, we want to get the phone to what? We want to get it to ring. A full-term listing agreement. We just went over the 6-month listing. Above market commission. You know, if you're in a 6% market and you're able to add another percent, to put 4% to get the attention of all the other realtors, that could help to bring in multiple offers. Easy access, obviously, it'd be great to have a lockbox, yard sign and directional signs. And I've had some people say, you know what, we don't want a sign. You're thinking, well, how come? And they say, well, I just don't want the neighbors to know that we're selling. You know, the thing is the neighbors might know somebody that wants to live in the neighborhood. Plus a yard sign. You know, when the more signs you have, the more calls you get, people driving by. Seller to redecorate. Could be some old colors that they need to be updated, and you know, paint is a pretty affordable item to use to help make a home more saleable. Adjustable possession date we went over. The thing is, you know, will the sellers adjust their price for the buyers, might help them get their price. Okay, number 11, we talked about trades considered. By the way, this one is mostly for you guys to help you with your advertising, to help you get the phone to ring. So let's pretend that you are talking to a seller. And you say to them this, okay, I know you guys want to move over to Happy Hills. And let's pretend that while we're looking for properties over there, and I'm going to be proactive, I might add, and I'm calling a few people and things like that. And also somebody says, yeah, we'd like to sell our house. If they say that they want to live over here in Kensington where your house is, if they had the house that you liked and they liked your house, and it was just a matter of trading and the lawyers would adjust the prices, the closing costs and all that kind of things, would you consider it? And you know what? 9 times out of 10, or 10 out of 10 even, they'd say, well, yeah, but what are the odds of that? And you say, they're pretty slim. But I'll tell you what, this is what I'll do. In my ad, I'll put a little starburst on it that says trades considered. Somebody will call. In fact, I'll probably get a lot of calls. And I might even get people that don't even have a home, but I'm willing to sift and sort through everything for you guys. Now, for you guys, this is how it works. Every time somebody sees trades considered, it gets your phone to ring more. Now, sure, you're going to get some people who say, well, will they take a car for a trade? You say this, well, you know what? We're just looking for people that have properties. Do you own your own home or are you renting? Well, we own our own home. Oh, what do you have? Next thing you know, maybe you're going to be booking a listing appointment. Number 12, extras included. Remember, appliances are either in or out. They're never negotiable. Remember, we're not in the business of negotiating appliances. We negotiate what? Houses. So extras included. Number 13, pre-ordered appraisal. Number 14, pre-ordered inspection. Number 15, no seller conditions. Number 6, some people will actually say, I want to put a condition in here that when we have an offer, it's subject to us finding a home. Oh my, you don't want that to happen. 16, available for first office tour or caravan. 17, seller to complete any obvious repairs. Let's say the faucet is busted or a handle is off or something that's obvious, something that's not working, a door that's not closing, things like that. 18, confirm a future price reduction. Now, talk to your broker how you can manage that, all right? But it's good to know that if you have a price and the market's continuing to drop, that maybe you have a consideration for something in the future. Number 19, an open house is set, the date. And, of course, 20 being you. And on the bottom, you have a place for the agent to sign and date it, and, of course, the seller to sign it and date it as well. Okay, let's get into the expired listings. There's 6 keys I want to point out for you here. First of all, remember this, 7 out of 10 will list again. Number 2, be prepared for an earful. Now, like I said, in some areas you're able to call them, find a true expired and give them a call. Some places you're just going to have to do some great advertising and hopefully they call you. But remember, when you're talking to them, let's say somebody calls you on an ad and you say, do you own your own home or are you renting? Well, we own our own home. Oh, I see. And they say, yeah, we tried to sell it last year. Be prepared for an earful because what they're going to do is they're going to complain about something. And particularly, they're going to complain about someone. And it's going to be the other agent, exactly. So be prepared for an earful and let them talk. Let them get that out of their system. And as soon as there's an opening, it's time for you to reignite their desires. And remember our call form? And we had some questions we gave you. You'll start out with something like this. Where were you planning on moving to? What kind of home did you want to get over there? You see where I'm going with this? You reignite their desires and never, ever blame the price. They always blame the other realtor for the price, but who picked the price really in the first place? It was the seller, wasn't it? Now, when you're talking to them and you're reigniting their desires, the trick is here is that if you're in an area where you can talk to expireds, it's real easy. You've already had a prospecting list, you're calling them, you can say to them, you know what, I'm looking at a copy of your listing. And, I'm amazed that it didn't sell. Did you guys advertise it in the real estate paper? Okay. Did you guys do an open house? Did you? You say about 3 or 4 did yous that probably were done. Then you say, oh, and by the way, did you guys also go through the property checklist? And I say, well, what's that? And you'll say, oh, well, it's actually a tool we have over here at ABC Realty that almost assures the sale of your home. In fact, for you, it'll actually show why your home didn't sell. And then you want to close on the appointment. You can say, why don't we do this? I don't mind. I could set aside some time. I could come over and we could go over the property checklist. You could find out why your home didn't want to sell and you could see if you'd consider putting it on the market again. I've got some time tonight at 5 or would tomorrow night after dinner be better? And one other thing you could show them too as well is when you go over there, or even for prospecting, you could have the comparison chart showing the different services for the companies. So let's wrap up lesson 5 here with your weekly activity. Number 1, go to the office early, 9 a.m., prospect 5 days a week. Number 2, book a minimum of 3 listing appointments each week. Number 3, keep track of your production on your program production page A7. Number 4, bring in your completed weekly report page A6, signed by your broker manager and hand it in to your assistant captain no later than, what time? 9:30 a.m., absolutely. Number 5, add another 25 names to your sphere of contact list. And number 6, if you have a listing that is overpriced, go get a price reduction. Number 7, reproduce the wholesale retail technique and put it in the back of your listing presentation. Bring it to class. Let me see it. I would like to see where you're at with that. Number 8, reproduce the property checklist and put that also in the back of your listing presentation. Schedule a minimum of 1 free day off to recharge. Spend time with your family. And number 10, listen to Lesson 5 CD a minimum of 3 times. So let me wrap it up today with a poem on attitude. And I want to recommit to our attitude right now in Lesson 5 as we proceed into the second half of the productivity challenge. Are you ready? Here it goes. The longer I live, the more I realize the impact of attitude in my life. Attitude to me is more important than the past, than education, than money, than circumstances, failures, successes, or what other people think or say or do. It is more important than appearances, giftedness, or skill. It will make or break a company, a church, a home. The remarkable thing is we have a choice every day regarding the attitude we will embrace for that day. We cannot change our past. We cannot change the fact that people will act in a certain way. We cannot change the inevitable. The only thing we can do is play the one string we have, and that is our attitude. I am convinced that life is 10% of what happens to me and 90% of how I react to it. And so it is with you. We are in charge of our attitude. So if you're asked to fill out that strike letter that I mentioned last week, and you're asked to stay, then stay so the trainer can help you, because it's all about getting better and better and better. So God bless each and every one of you. We will see you next week.